Hinako wants to die. Following a tragic accident that killed her family and left her physically and emotionally disfigured, Hinako can't find the reason to keep going. And even with the support of her friend and a monster that wants to eat her, she's helpful, I promise. It's a struggle to get out of bed most days for Hinako. Her broken demeanor is a stark contrast in this bright world. And despite everyone's best efforts, Hinako cannot or will not change. So how do you present this internal inertia to an audience? Well, we've talked about a couple techniques in other videos that can get the job done, like frames within frames and wide shots. But here's how This Monster Wants to Eat Me does it. Broadly speaking, This Monster Wants to Eat Me will apply slow motion during its more introspective moments. In film, typical slow motion works by capturing a scene at a higher frame rate and then playing those frames back at a normal frame rate over a longer period of time. In animation, it's no different. You draw more frames of the movement and play them at 24 frames per second, or FPS. However, this scene does something slightly different. Instead of increasing the number of frames, it reduces the FPS so that each frame lingers longer, applying a cross-dissolve effect between frames to really hammer home the point. Even though both methods depict slow motion, the visual impact couldn't be more different. The first instance of this technique comes in a flashback in episode 1. As Hinako faintly recalls a childhood memory of chasing after her brother, this slow motion is used to clearly distinguish this scene as one from the past, synergizing with the flashback. The cross dissolves between frames highlights the transiency of the memories. The manner by which the frames fade in and out recreates that lingering sensation. Here, the reduced FPS further distances the scene from our normal perception of time. And while this change in theory should pull the viewer out of their immersion, it instead draws them into Hinako's headspace, to see these memories in an external way. That said, flashbacks are not limited to this technique. You can do other things for flashbacks, like playing them normally or adding some sort of static filter on top. Vice versa, this technique is not unique to the portrayal of the past. This Monster Wants to Eat Me also employs this slow motion for moments in the present. It appears in episode 1 when we meet our second lead Shiori. It appears again as Shiori sneaks around and Hinako gives chase. And it appears over and over again, such as when characters are holding hands or when extras are heading towards a festival. As I ran into more and more scenes that used this form of slow motion, I started to wonder, what was the intention? To figure this out, I started looking into an analogous technique in traditional film. And one of the closest techniques to this type of slow motion I found was a signature motif of Hong Kong director Wong Kar-wai. Wong utilizes a technique called step printing, where you capture a scene in say 24 FPS, but play those 24 frames over 48 frames. This is accomplished by playing one of your recorded frames for 2 total frames, like you're freeze framing for 1/24th of a second. The result is slow motion, with the scene possessing a more jittery feel. Wong often combines step printing with undercranking, which is the process of recording at a lower FPS. By lowering the FPS, it allows more light into the camera shutter, thereby creating the motion blur effect. When this jittery slow motion is combined with the additional motion blur, the results look remarkably similar to what This Monster Wants to Eat Me achieves. And now we can look to the filmography of Wong to help understand what step printing offers anime. In Jump Cut, a review of contemporary media, writer Robert Payne discusses several works by Wong and the importance of some of his directing decisions. In this article, Payne ascribes 2 purposes to step printing: robbing momentum from action scenes and challenging the way viewers perceive time. These consequences of step printing are essential in the depiction of Wong's characters, who often feel stuck and struggle to find a way to change. And that is exactly the situation we find Hinako in. The rest of the cast desperately tries to reignite Hinako's will to live, but they never manage to do so. And it's in the representation of that mental malaise that the step printing effect really shines. In episode 1, Hinako is saved from a monster thanks to the intervention of Shiori, but the fight doesn't matter. Instead, Hinako finds herself hoping she's found someone who can kill her. The show robs the fight of tension and kineticism to allow Hinako's selfish monologue to take center. In another scene, Hinako is attacked by an axe-wielding monster. As the step printing effect takes over, she questions why she's even trying to escape, before remembering her promise with Shiori and narrowly dodging the blow. The intentionality of these decisions is supported by a separate fight between Shiori and a fox monster that doesn't use step printing at all. In that scene, the outcome of the fight is the focus of the episode, with none of Hinako's internal thoughts being vocalized. Step printing takes Hinako and the viewer out of the fight to prioritize her thoughts. The second aspect of step printing is how it impacts time. This concept isn't about flashbacks or time travel, it is about perception and relativity. The speed at which the character experiences life can be communicated through step printing. Wong Kar-wai will use this technique to both speed up scenes to imbue them with chaos, and to painfully draw out mundane ones. The step printing in This Monster Wants to Eat Me is about extending the experience of time for Hinako. The swing of an axe, the people walking towards a festival, running while holding hands. Each of these typically exciting and kinetic motions are painfully elongated while Hinako is enervatingly still. In the same way that pain can psychologically make moments feel like eternities, Hinako's depression and survivor's guilt make every individual day a slog. And while Hinako's inner thoughts play out at a normal speed, the audience gets to truly experience the lassitude of Hinako's everyday life. The frequent usage of step printing communicates just how agonizingly slow everything feels. This technique really stuck out to me while watching This Monster Wants to Eat Me, mostly because they spam the hell out of it. Yuri shows have historically gotten the short end of the stick when it comes to production, so it's always really fascinating to see what directors fall back on to convey meaning in an economical fashion. And while I wouldn't say that every single usage of this technique is appropriate, step printing really feels like a perfect means of showing just how painful the most mundane actions can be for Hinako. And it's fascinating that such a shift in visuals that would normally break the viewer's immersion can actually draw the audience further in. It goes to show that while animation and composition are paramount in cinematography, the editing of the frames afterwards can be just as important.